Alright, so this is probably going to fog up because I just forgot to put it outside last night to warm up the camera, but here we are. We're getting ready to pull the fuel tank. First thing I did this morning is I moved my temperature sender that I had back here to up under there, and it worked. Just barely fits, but it fits, and it gets me a little better temperature reading because it's near the water pump and not where you could get a little airlock. So that's good. I did find that the ear on the other side of this compressor is broken. It cracked. I don't think that's going to hurt it too much. But yeah, and while I was warming it up to burp the system, it just wouldn't stay running. It'd run and run for about a minute and then die. And I thought it might be out of gas because I've been running it low, so I put some gas in it, still did the same thing. And I finally dorked around with the fuel pump, and the actual original electric fuel pump, I believe, has died because it will not run. I disconnected this line here, put another line on it, pointed it at the ground, turned the car on, nothing happened. Poked at the fuel pump, it grumbled at me a little bit, and no fuel. So I was able to use an air hose and pressurize the tank to blow some fuel up here, and that worked. So I was able to get it turned around and where I need it so we can start working on it. But right now we got it up on the old lift. I'm probably going to end up putting it off the lift, put it on jack stands just to free up a little bit more room along the sides where I'm going to be working. But for right now, I think my main plan is to get up under here, go somewhere. Yep, there it is. And pop that fitting off, if not maybe the hose, wherever I can see it. Yeah, maybe. And just gravity drain the fuel tank as best I can into a bucket or something, and then save that gas for the lawnmower. And go from there. There she goes. She just clicked. It was unlocked. It just clunked into posi mode. Now it's working. Okay. So I think that's what we're going to do. Then we're going to start taking all the fuel pump and everything else off, just to clear us some space for what we're going to need to do. So it's not going to be too interesting. I'm just going to spill gas all over the place. So once I get it drained and get ready to start taking it down, after I remove my license plate flipper, then we will bring you back after the camera warms up. Alright, so the fuel line is out, the fuel is out. Had about 7-ish gallons in it. I had put about 2.5 in it this morning, so she had some in it. But I've just got the fitting turned up with a piece of hose sticking up over the top, so that when I take it down, that should keep it from whatever's left spilling. This is the fuel level sender. Got those wires nipped. Should give me enough to mostly get it to the ground, I'm kind of hoping. We'll see. Got the fuel neck undone, which was just a hose from there to the tank. And now, yeah, got the license plate out. I didn't realize the tank was a whole horseshoe. I thought it had a thing over the top with just for the plate, but it doesn't, so that's what we're gonna go with. And oh wow, that's welded. Okay, interesting. That must be the back of the frame. Okay, interesting. I may end up having to box this because this is a very thin channel, and I don't. It's kind of twisty when I pull on the bumper. I don't really want twisty when I'm talking with the working with the trailer hitch. So what I think I'm gonna do is try to get the camera set up so you can all watch me drop this on my face. And we'll go from there. So I think it's just 2 half-inch bolts on each side, and it drops. So here we go. See what kind of a mess we can make. Please don't tell me you put a nut on that thing. How do you get to it? I can't even feel it. I don't think so. Good Lord. Not the best socket. Back in a minute. The heads of the bolts didn't budge. Good grief. Let's make sure that's what I think it is. Yep. That is not loosening. Alright. Alright, Bob, what did you do? What did you do? Oh, good Lord. What? Oh my goodness. Okay, well, that'll work, I guess. There is a nut on it, but the bolt is fully this long and goes all the way up through the top of the frame. Okay, we'll be back in a second. It was not coming off, that's for sure. It's definitely a Ford. I guess this is what you have to do when you work on Fords. But it worked. Alright, well, this is sitting on the gas neck. Yep, okay. So now we can try to take off the other ones, and there is still some fuel in it, because it is pretty, well, maybe it's just heavy. Okay. This is going to be something. Okay. Okay, found it. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yep, there's still fuel in it. Oh. Oh. Okay, plenty of wire. Ooh, that's not light. Oh shit, but the damn bows come off. Come on. Be good. Oh god, that's not light. It's still good. There's still a fair bit of fuel on this thing. Oh, that's heavy. Okay. Come on. Oh, good gracious. Oh. Phew. All right, well that was something. I guess I got some holes to mount the trailer hitch to. That's not quite how I would have expected it to be done, but good enough. So the fuel tank, she's out. All right. There. Let me get over here. Get this thing. Man. Okay, yeah, you can see the fasteners, which kind of just went straight up through the frame. That's one of the washers. And we got plenty of room back here now. We got good room back here now. Oh, this will be not too bad. Only boxed all the way back to here, which is good, but this is kind of cheesy in the back. This piece here is not terribly beefy, so lighting's not good. All right, we're gonna go get some little tiny wrenches, disconnect this thing, and get it out from under here. Well, there it is. She's out. Got about another gallon out of it. It's just a pretty darn heavy all hand fabricated sheet steel tank. And I guess a funny story about this tank being put in. When my dad first built the car, it had a fuel cell in it, right where I'm going to be putting a fuel cell back. And he didn't like it because it took up a lot of the trunk. And you got kind of a fuel smell in the car if you spilled a little bit, stuff like that. So he had, I think Bob Berry up in Preston or somewhere up there, Connecticut. Really well-known hot rod builder at the time. I think he had a 39 Plymouth, which was pretty cool, or something like that back in the day. Anyway, he had him fabricate this tank. And I believe the first tank that he put in ended up having a leak. Unfortunately, he didn't water check it. He just he put gas in it and found out that it had a leak. So he took it back out, cleaned it as best he thought he did, and as soon as he touched it with the welder, it blew up. And I don't think it actually came apart, but it poofed the whole thing up like a donut. And so luckily he wasn't hurt. But that story is one of the reasons why I'm not using this tank. Because first off, it has no baffles in it. And if you fill it, you can see where that comes out. It just dumps out of the fuel filler cap on. If you go around a corner, it just dumps gasoline onto the fender. And I don't think the drag strips are going to appreciate that. Plus, there's no rollover. It would just empty the tank. If you flip this thing, it would just dump 20 gallons of gasoline on your head. So it's not the... I mean, it certainly worked. It was working great till the fuel pump died 10 minutes ago. But not really optimal for racing. So we're going to be going back with the fuel cell. And I think my next trick is going to be to strip out the fuel pump and all the fuel lines up to here, just to get them out of there, clear the area, see what I may need to do. I'm most likely going to come up in this front of the engine the same way for the new fuel line, because everywhere else is kind of headery and exhausty, and I'd rather keep the fuel away from that if I can help it. So what we're going to do now is disconnect some of this, go through, find all the little clips, pull this fuel line off, and then get the fuel pump out of the way, unplug it, make sure that I can understand what those the wires are, because those are most likely the same ones, since they are the fuel pump wires for this thing. Same ones I'm going to use to run the new pump, which will be all the way at the back. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to see if we can get the fuel pump and the rest of the lines off. I may end up having to take it off of the big jack and put it on some jack stands just to clear some room to get up in there, but we will see. All right, well, all the stuff is out, up to carburetor. Shoot, B. And I took the upholstery out of the back, a little bit of the boards, and kind of set this thing in here. Mom and Dad stopped by, and Dad said his tank was originally a 20. This is a 25, so it's about an inch bigger in every direction. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of carpentry back here, yay, to make some room, get her to sit down properly, and then get all this ready. Looks like I will be able to put the panels back in after I'm done, which will be kind of nice. I don't know how much more I'm going to get done while the sun's up today, though, because it is about 95 degrees with a 76 degree dew point. It is pretty flippin' hot. And I think she's looking promising. It's definitely going to fit. I'm going to have to do some work to her. I'll get this pulled out. Give you an idea of what we got going on here. Whoop! Don't want that. Come here. Alright, so you can see the floor is not flat at all. So the tank will be sitting on this. This glass is about a ½ inch thick from what Dad tells me. It's pretty heavy. And so I'm going to have to make some sort of a little mount up here to hold it in place. And then I'm going to have to do a little carpentry to notch this section out here for the holes. These are the wires for the fuel sender. I'm going to have to pull those up through, do something with that, and see what else we want to do here. I may end up having to take the sides out again. I don't really want to, but I think I have to in order to be able to get this back piece out to do a little bit better carpentry. So I think what I'm going to do now is set this thing back on the ground, because this is going to take a little more time than I had hoped, and it's going to be easier to work on it if it is on the ground rather than on the lift, given that this is, you know, as far in as I can reach over the bumper. So I'm going to drop her down on the ground and probably pull this interior apart again. There we go. Alright, thinking about it a little bit more, there is a false floor they designed to put in here. I don't think it originally had it when the last fuel cell was in it, but if I was able to screw all that together around the perimeter the way it's mounted, that's going to make that pretty solid. And I could put a few screws in the center right through here into the fiberglass to hold it down. And I could attach straps to that and notch out back here just to have this drop down. That might work. That might just work. I think that may be what I focus on here, is leaving the floor in, because that's going to be a lot easier to deal with than to build a whole new bracket support structure for the front of that and then the back, because it's curved, it's not flat. The glass mold is not flat at all. So I think that's what I may do. Mark this one and maybe a little bit of this one here to take a notch out and see what that might look like. Alright, so in a little creative hole saw, and circular saw use, we have a notch. That piece isn't attached yet. The rest of this is pretty solid. I think I got to figure out, I'll go get it. And that, I think, will probably work. The only weird thing is the boards are kind of flat. It's hard to see with this metal in the way, but a little bit of a gap there. I may end up shimming it around the edges. I think I may have kind of a little bit of a curve this way, but I think that's going to work pretty good. I'm going to have to stiffen up some of the supports for this board here, all the way across. That piece was loose, and now it's detached, because it used to be attached to this piece. It went all the way to that wall. But I think that's what's going to work. Yeah, that's not terrible. Got the rollover vent over there. It's pretty simple to deal with. Got the return, which I don't like because it doesn't have a dip tube, so I'm going to cap that and put another one in. It actually has a tube that will go below the fuel most of the time, unless I really run it low. Yeah, there's not really a bulge in the bottom of the tank, but it just doesn't quite sit flat on my boards, which certainly may not be flat. And I'm going to take a break because it's getting hot and I'm on my second hat. So I'm going to take a break, cool off, and then we'll be back doing a little bit more thinking on how we're going to put this in, because I think this is going to work nicely. I think I've got a couple of, I can cut this area out here, have, cut it out maybe 4 or 5 inches square. Once it's all screwed in, I can make a plate that comes up and around and just covers it in the back. So you can either get to it to the bottom, or you can unscrew the plate and take it off. We'll gasket it up to the tank. Make sure that doesn't go anywhere. Keep the fumes or the potential leaks on the ground rather than in the car. And should be in good shape. So we'll be back after we cool down a little bit. Alright, so there's your problem, lady. Tank bottom is not flat by any stretch of the imagination. So, weirdly, the floor of the car is, but that's not. I really don't want to beat that with a hammer. So what I think I'm going to end up doing is shimming it, just making some rails for it to sit on here and over here once I get all this screwed in place. And I think that's going to work. So I'm going to pull these sheets out, attach the underlayment, put this stuff down, screw it in place, and support this side a little better. It's kind of floppy. And once we do that, then we'll be able to take a 2x4 and rip it on my big table saw and make some whatever we need for shims. Screw those in place to here, and then that's going to be how we mount it. But I think that's going to work. So, not too bad. Man, it's still brutal. Sun's starting to go down, but it's still brutal over here. Let me try to get a little bit more done. I may try to get this finish mounted just in here today. We'll see where we end up. Alright. Well, I figured that we try the straps and they kind of pull it down flat. So that's kind of nice. I'm going to have to get a couple of longer screws for the rear, because I wasn't able to get them all the way into the fiberglass. I got the ones in the fiberglass in the front all the way up into the fiberglass. I may switch over to nuts and bolts eventually, once we get it completely finalized, but that's going to make it real hard to disassemble because you'll need somebody underneath the car, unless I put a nut plate of some sort somewhere. But I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work. So that's probably going to be it for today. Already gone through 3 hats, and it's getting sun's going down. It's about time for a beer. But we got the fuel system out. We have the fuel cell generally mounted. It could work at this point, but I want it strapped down a little bit better. So we're going to do that eventually, most likely tomorrow. And then we're going to do some chopping in the floor. Open that up back here so that we can put our cap and our elbow on it. Start running some lines. See if we can get this thing plumbed up. That's going to take a while though, I think. Haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do for the return, how I'm going to get it back in here, if I'm going to run it. I may run the return all the way back here, just pop it up and around, because it's all going to be either braided or hard pipe. Maybe I'll run the return back here in the back. I wouldn't think that'll screw it up too much, but that's where we're at. Anyway, we're getting there. Hope you're all having a good day. Take care.